from the time we were kids, we're taught you got to be rule followers. Just conform, keep your head down, and you'll be fine. And this show exists because the most interesting people I've ever met did the complete opposite. And what they've built because of it is worth talking about. My guest today built a medical staffing company from the ground up, survived the
Mm.
2008 recession, rebuilt, and then wrote a book about it, exposing corruption she witnessed inside the very industry she dedicated her career to. So admirable. She didn't stay quiet, and she certainly didn't stay in line. Her name's Kelli Christina, and she's the founder and CEO of Katie Staffing. She's an international best-selling author, speaker, business coach, and the host of her own show, The Kelli Christina Show. She calls recruitment an art, and I call her exactly what this show is built for. Kelli Christina, welcome to Out of Line. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany. And I'm excited to talk to you today. And I certainly believe in your message out there. And I think that this show is going to be very powerful for you.
Oh, I appreciate that. And the first messages we exchanged, I felt the same way. So tell me a little bit. Let's get through the original stuff first. Tell us about your background. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, let's get rolling, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Kelli Christina, and I've had two beautiful careers with wearing additional hats throughout the career. But my first career, of course, I'm a restaurant baby. I started working at restaurants when I was 15. I have a hotel restaurant business degree, and I was, I think, 3 years into management when I finally got my management degree. So
Okay.
I started off, at a very young age. For some reason, I needed to be 100 steps ahead of everybody.
I can relate
And
to
we would
that.
go from
Yeah.
there. We would go from there. But restaurants, hospitality,
Mm-hmm.
service, taking care of people is deep drilled in my heart, soul, and passion,
Mm.
even to this day. And then, of course, at 30 years old, I would switch careers and I would move
Yeah.
into staffing and recruitment. And
Mm-hmm.
actually started staffing and recruitment on the hospitality side. So I was
Okay.
definitely, I was recruiting
Makes sense.
restaurant managers, directors, CEOs, executives. And then I would move into the beautiful path of medical.
Yeah. How did you
And
make that leap?
it was just that time. And honestly, I have an ex-husband that kind of persuaded this step.
Okay.
I'll be honest, he's like, you're going into medical and you're going into
Oh,
corporate, whether you want to or not.
oh, well, good.
He was an ex-VP banker, and honestly, I don't mean to laugh, but staffing and recruitment and hospitality, he used to tell us because, we were out there with all the restaurant openings and the restaurant industry,
Mm-hmm.
but he would say we were eating away all of our profits because we were,
Yeah.
we were definitely could save our receipts for our CPAs, and we certainly knew how to do a 3-course lunch.
There you
But
go.
anyway, he said it's time to get a little bit more serious. Let's step into corporate. Medical seemed to be the opportunity. It is a very, very difficult learning
Mm.
career, just switching out into
Yeah.
medical. Learning, I had to get more on the computer skills. I had to get more on the
Mm-hmm.
typing. You have to actually learn about our medical professionals and
Right.
even up to current day. I love to train new people because I have that
Mm-hmm.
inside knowledge and training program to do that. But even with
Yeah.
the new recruiters, I tell them, I don't care, what discipline you're doing, whether you're nursing, well, all the layers of nursing or physician or you're a tech or whatever it is, you need to go out
Mm-hmm.
there. You need to research that job. You need to know
Yeah.
something about that job before you ever get on the phone with our medical professionals. Because if
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't know what you're talking about, they're going to hang up that phone on you.
Definitely. Have to have some credibility.
Yes, yes. You need to not be an expert, but know enough
Mm-hmm.
to keep them in those conversations and layers of
Right.
trust. So it's a lot of learning through the medical. The medical industry
Yeah.
industry is brilliant.
Yeah. So you worked for a company when you first started in staffing, and fast forward, you ended up founding your own. So tell us about that transition.
So, when I first went into staffing and recruitment first, it's always kind of funny because I didn't foresee, like, I didn't care about being a boss any longer. I just did not.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what I did care about. And this is where I'm always the boss
Yeah.
again. I am very much, if I'm not the boss, I am focused I am
Mhm.
learning. I am going above and beyond. I am going to figure out how to beat the
Mhm.
competition every time. But anyway, if you focus on the right things and you drive with enough passion and you come up with those plans of going above
Yeah.
and beyond, something's going to happen. You're going to start rising in a layer of success. So on the corporate
Yeah.
side, Tiffany, and I think I had mentioned I could be a very private person. When I started
Mm.
corporate, we were a small division. We had like 10 travelers and it was a brand new
Okay.
division. And I was just so excited because we are going to be put in this corner and I had this little corner office and where I could just sit down, drive down with my team and the rest of the entire company could just leave us alone. That was perfect for me. It's
Mhm.
like a cave,
Yeah.
right? But the problem is that I am going to learn whatever job. I am going to go above and beyond. I am going to find out how to beat the
Yeah.
competition. So what ended up happening is that small little division within like 2 years, we had grown it to about 10 million, which is a very big deal
Wow.
in corporate.
Yeah.
And I here remember, then the bosses come to you, in the corner office and they're dragging you up. And I'm like, you know what? Say goodbye to your corner office. I need you in the middle of the nursing division, and they need to hear
Yeah.
how you talk to your people. The way you talk to your people and the level
Mhm.
of trust. Okay,
Yeah.
I need the rest of the company to learn this, but I only bring it up because if it were my choice, I would have stayed in the corner office like, "Hey, find
Mm.
somebody else." So, anyway,
Right. Mm.
corporate went really, really well for me, but, something happens at some point and, actually at an older age, somebody came along and bribed me out of that position. And it's one of those
Mm.
jobs you probably could have just stayed at the job, right? You get
Got
bribed
it.
out.
Yeah.
But at some point in my career, I had definitely had the results. They're right over the top. And, I'm a type A that was a boss at 19 years old. And so it would
Mm.
only come natural that I would want to open my own company at some point.
Right. Right.
And so in 2007, I would found KD Staffing.
That's phenomenal. Now you mentioned focusing on the right things. What were those for you?
I am very big on setting your team up for success in the
Okay.
beginning stages.
Mm.
And I can't, and you'll run into it, by the way. There are some people and some operations out there, they are so busy devising sneaky plans, the way they can break laws and screw people over. They spend so
Mm.
much energy on this topic that if you were to
Yeah.
switch it just the energy of you can do it the honest approach, you can
Yeah.
come up with the right way. And oh, by the way, yes, success and money is out there the honest way. That's
It
what I'm
is.
about. That's what I'm
Okay.
about.
Great.
Yeah.
What talk about the first, let's say year that you had your own business. What do you think was the toughest thing that you went through or, what was a mistake that you made you wish that you could go back and give yourself advice on?
First off the bat, I opened KD right before a recession. Or we were going into a
Yeah.
recession. So, I would set KD down in the next couple years because honestly, when you're pulling into a recession, you got to have to have a certain amount of sales above,
Right.
your head or you are in a lot of trouble. Okay.
Right.
Um, but opening your own business is a wow. I mean,
Mm.
first off the bat, you're probably going to be working 7 days a week.
Mhm.
If yeah, a lot of people are, they think, "Oh, you're so lucky." Really? I'm married to my business, right?
Yeah.
But then also when you're first opening a business, like you're still learning on, your budget. Where do you put your money?
Mhm.
I'm very big on I can't do everything. I'm not an expert in every way. So who are you going to
Right.
pay? Who are the professionals you're going to pay to make sure that you've got things done the right way? And then
Yeah.
are you overspending in this area if you're not overspending, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got to develop your team.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of layers on
Right.
learning how to open a company. For me, it was also a fear factor, like, oh my gosh, what am I
Yeah.
doing here? I'm a brand new company. Is this going to make it? So you're jumping instead of,
Yeah.
all those years ago, I probably had such a layer of stress, right? Just because
Right.
you're thinking about a year or 5 years down the road. And I only bring that up because all these years later, what I would say is go one step at a time. You go one day at a time.
Mm.
You go 1 week at a time. You go 1 year at a time.
There's a theme here of founders that I've been talking to, and everybody has said the same thing, and all have had a really good deal, a level of success, and that's get the right people, get the people who are smarter than you, who are better than you to run these areas of the business that you can't be in all the time. And I just think that's very telling of the type of leader that, it takes to do it the right way, the honest way, is that level of humility. And it seems like you certainly had that even from the very beginning. You knew, okay, I can't be the one doing everything. So what was the person that you hired that, really helped you? What was that role?
For me, just because, and I know I mentioned that we had grown a division to 10 million. So
Yeah.
I am definitely, and by the way, I still have this problem. I am the company owner that works really, really hard, that could
Mhm.
stand to delegate a little bit more. But because
Mhm.
of the depths and how hard I will work,
Right.
and that my team knows anything that she asks you to do, she'll do it herself. All right. Right. So I only bring that up because I could always, like, there's always things you could work on. And what I could work on harder would be delegation. But on the recruitment side, the sales volume and the amount of people that I can handle, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's not an average
Yeah.
number. And there are other people out there in that industry too. But for me, the type of people that I would hire for Katie staffing, would be legal. It would be
Mm.
IT. It would be the marketing platform. It would be all of that because I'm
Yeah.
horrific. I'm really dumb with IT, and so I'm just that is my do not. I need someone immediately.
Yeah.
So more the outside and the skeleton, the people
Right.
that you need to build is what I need to bring to my team.
Yeah.
Not everybody would feel comfortable with this decision. But yes, hire the experts, right, that are tied in the field. But it
Mhm.
depends on how you feel because I will say that I'm one of those, I am an expert. I was a number one
Mm.
brand in
Yeah.
medical staffing myself. So I will take
Right.
the brand new with the chirpy, positive attitude, and I will train you
Yeah.
all day long if you'll go above and beyond. So I'm a big believer in hiring some new and training them the right way too. But if you're going to
That's
go
great.
that approach, you got to make sure that you train your people. And even in staffing
Yeah.
and recruitment, I've worked for companies that don't have a training program. It's like, how do you expect your people to
Yeah.
develop your people when you don't have the appropriate training?
Right. Right.
It's unfair. You need to have the proper training manuals, training programs. You need to take the training time. You need to continue to develop your people, you know?
Yeah.
I would step from working
Mm.
with other staffing companies that maybe they overwhelmed you or it was like your head spinning and you're like, it's too much. What
Mm.
I mean by that is there are companies out there that just throw you on the desk and you're running both sides. You're running recruitment, right? And then you got to go get your
Yeah.
clients. Okay, for our new people, honestly, when
Mm.
they're new, it's too much. It's too much. So
Yeah.
I believe in stepping people. In other words, I would start a lot of my recruiters in the basic, let's learn these disciplines and I'm going to put you on to find these people and
Mhm.
the depths that I know because I've worked with the top staffing firms. I'm going to handle more of that on my
Right.
side. Let's get you
Yeah.
on step 1
Yeah.
and 2. When you're good with step
Yeah.
in 1 and 2, then we'll graduate to another area.
I like that you call it stepping people.
It is
I like
stepping.
that. That's good. Yeah. I always had I was very lucky in staffing. I didn't have to do full desk or I was selling and recruiting. That seemed to me just way over my head. I agree. I think that, and if you're going to go that route, I think you're right. Just starting learning one of the sides of the business and becoming good at it is the way to go.
Yeah.
And Kelly, it's I think that you've got such a great work ethic. Where did that come from in your life? Is this something you've always had? Is that family instilled? How did you become such high integrity and such great work ethic?
Thank you for saying that. That's very sweet of you, by the way.
Mm.
But it is actually true. I have a really tough work ethic. And you know
Yeah.
what? There's people out there that can do because so this is what I have to say. I have to watch my level of patience because there are
Okay.
people out there, they don't want to work as hard as what I work. You know what I mean? And I'm not the only one
Mhm.
doing it.
Yeah.
Because we've been in Texas for so long, I've always said, "No, don't give Texas credit." I love Texas, but I do, I love
Yeah.
Texas. Let's not, but
Yeah.
I was born Midwest, and I only
Oh,
bring that
right.
up because that is the home of my family, right? That was
Okay.
where I was born. I personally, I think Midwest people are they're a little bit more serious, all right?
Mm.
They're very smart, and boy, do they work hard. And that
Yeah.
is my family line. So, yeah,
Yeah.
final answer, I came from the Midwest and some very strong families on work ethic, you know?
I definitely relate to I have a different, background and story of where my work ethic came from, but the end result is very similar to yours, I feel. And, I struggle sometimes with hiring people
Yeah.
that you're right. You have to have some patience, but it's where's the line of, okay, this is just extreme for me because I'm so over the top. And then where's that line of, all right, they just don't have what it takes to be on my team. How have you felt similarly with your team, and how do you hire people?
Think the answer is gonna be different for me on
Mhm.
what career we're talking about. In other words, there's different
Okay.
expectations for a hospitality type boss,
Right.
manager, versus staffing and recruitment. Staffing and recruitment, I will say this, I'll hire and I'll fire aggressively, and I will push
Mm,
results.
mm,
And I only bring that up. My thinking is this, and it's not about, I'm sorry that I know how to fire people in my sleep, but to me, with staffing
right.
and recruitment, you're either really good at the job or you are really
Mhm.
not. And in
Yeah,
staffing and recruitment, you
true.
are not going to make your money. You're not going to
Yep.
make your money if you're not just, great at the job. And so I've
Yeah.
always felt like I'm doing somebody a service by
Yeah.
getting rid of them sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But I'll be nice about it. I can be ugly. And
Mm,
either way you want, but I will make
mhm.
that call. I can remember running an office with another female partner, and I mean, I'm not bragging, but I'm just speaking the facts. This is how I
Yeah.
lead teams, all right? She spent double on her division, right? I spent half the money on mine. We were on the recruitment
Mhm.
side, okay? I will push results and I will push
Yeah.
hard and I will fire accordingly. But I spent half the money and we doubled our results on my side of the office. It's
Wow.
my leadership. That's how I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. I think that that's so important for business owners to be able to recognize that faster, that it's not necessarily, I like how you said it's a disservice. I think that's what you said. It's a
Yeah.
disservice
Mhm.
to them. And that I had a light bulb go off years ago. One of my mentors made me read this book. And in the book, it said, you know, not everybody is an A plus with
Right.
your company, but they're an A plus somewhere. And the longer you hold on to them, the longer you're keeping them from being an A plus somewhere else. And that was so enlightening to me because I think there's a lot of guilt we feel about firing somebody that is devastating
Mhm,
to
mhm,
them.
mhm.
And what would you tell a new business owner that's struggling with that?
There is, speaking of managing or leading or you're the boss and it doesn't matter what layer of boss we're talking about. We all have challenges,
Yeah,
right?
very true.
But
Yeah,
I always tell people, and it wouldn't matter if we were talking about staffing and recruitment or hospitality, restaurants, whatever we're talking about. This is
yeah,
what I say. You want to drive results, right? You want to demand perfection. But while you're out demanding that, you need to realize that people aren't perfect. Okay.
mm,
They're perfect.
yeah,
People are perfectly imperfect. So
yeah,
you need to be able to overlook or get past some things too. Because if you're out
mm-hmm,
there and you're demanding perfection all the time, people they're already going to fail you.
right,
So, and that goes for myself too. I am OCD. I'm right over the top. I got to get the results, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't
yeah,
matter if I'm the boss, if I'm the company owner, if I'm an author or I'm the employee. Because if I'm an employee for somebody, then my attitude is I take it very serious to be working for somebody else's operations and I want to
yeah,
nail that for them. Right.
yeah,
But again, you got to realize I'm not perfect. I make my
right,
mistakes like everybody else. And
Mhm.
so that's a message I like to pass on. People are imperfectly they're just they can't deliver perfection 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And
Love that. Love
if you
that.
expect that, you're already failing.
You say that recruitment is an art. Tell us about that philosophy.
So recruitment as an art is something I don't know how many years ago I came up with that. It probably would have been over 10 years ago. But
Mhm.
recruitment as an art is my training program
Okay.
for, and it's a training program for basically any companies that have people on the phone job, you know,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
again, and that's the training program because a lot of people discredit recruiters and staffing, and I think, oh, well, all you're doing is getting on the phone telling people they have a job. No, no, that's not
Yeah.
all we're doing. Okay.
Yep.
On and here's the deal. Service is service, how we deliver service,
Mhm.
okay? So
Mhm.
recruiters or staffing firms, we are working with these candidates who are first we got to hear what happened at the job, right? Then we got to
Right.
prepare you for an interview. Then we got to if you take the offer, for me, we're staffing hospitals nationwide, which
Mm.
means that I'm not just working with, a nurse. I'm working with the partner, the spouse, the pets, the children.
Yeah.
We've got
Very
to
true.
get you, where you accept the job. And then, oh, by the way, we got to get you onboarded. We have to get all your paperwork done. We got to get you moved. We got to get you successfully set up, right?
Mhm.
So, for you to start that job. So, these are business relationships, and you're working with these
Yeah.
people months at a time. So,
Yeah.
it is an art. It is
Yeah.
an art what we do, and there is a degree of passion and going and be above and beyond, but you have to train your people to get through all of this process.
Yeah. That's step 1 for sure. And then you have to be a human throughout that process. I had a kind of an epiphany early on in my recruiting career, and there's so many procedures that you have to follow, and we had scripts that we were reading, and I had a candidate call me out for it, and, it was very eye-opening. She said I sounded like a robot, and let me just give myself some credit. I was, like, in my early 20s, so it was, like, not like this was last year or anything. I've learned a lot since then, but that was a profound moment in my career that, "Ooh, I need to be more human in this position because this is not this isn't tactical. This isn't transactional. This is dealing with people's lives and things
Mhm.
that change their lives for the better or for the worse." So it was almost like a switch flipped, and I'm like, I'm just going to be myself now. And I've lived my entire career like that since almost that conversation. It was a very pivotal moment for me. So I love that philosophy. I love that that's part of your training is you have to be, and that's what I take from it. At least I think that's phenomenal.
Exactly, and there's no but again, there's things early on in my career that I could laugh about too, the things that you learn around the path and everything. I think
Yes.
of like later days in recruitment, I'm more apt to cut you out of a job earlier
Mm,
stages, knowing that this is just it's not going to work out, right? And
yeah.
I will surprise. I've been known to surprise medical professionals by being that cut and dry and saying, "No, this is not it for you." And they're used to
Yeah.
someone pushing the sale, right? And I've been there.
Yeah.
I've done that. I'm pushing the sale. But when you get seasoned in enough years, a fine line this is not going to work. What
Yeah.
areas are going to work?
Absolutely. So far, we've only really talked about one of your professions, but you're multi-talented. You are an author, you're a public speaker, you have a talk show, I don't know where to start with you, Kelly, because there's so many topics to go into. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your books. How many books have you written, and kind of walk us through? I know that's a loaded question, but tell me a little bit more about how you. I don't think it's very easy to write a book. And where did that come from? And what inspired you to really put it all on paper and publish it?
Well, first, or write in publishing or being an author and writing a book and putting out the materials and then promoting the book and all of
Mm.
that, it's years of a process. I always tell everybody, you better be
Yeah.
very passionate about putting out
Yeah.
a book before you start, okay? Because
Right.
it's a very long journey.
Mm-hmm.
But I would become a point in my career where I did go from staffing and recruitment into working with our government officials in
Mm-hmm.
Texas and then, the work in Washington, D.C. and
Right.
kind of back and forward. Anyway, at some point, you want to write or expose like,
Mm.
my newest book is my 3rd book.
Okay.
It's on the shelf for pre-orders right now. The official pub
Great.
date, Tiffany, is, for the bookstores and Barnes& and Noble will be July 7th, but
Great.
that is my 3rd book. But it stems off and it's a new edition, better edition to my heavily awarded writing executive roller coaster medical staffing cases. That
Okay.
won 4 trifectas in 4 countries,
Amazing.
in 2021. But, it's an original litigation book of 225
Okay.
pages. So you can't put out to the general public, "Oh, hey, here's a litigation book," and then, "Oh, by the way, they wouldn't understand it in the first place," okay? You gotta be smart
Right.
about it to tell the story.
Yeah.
So that my current book, it is a nonfiction narrative, so it is based on real life,
Mm-hmm.
a real legal. It's labeled legal thriller, crime drama. It's also an inspirational testimonial book, and I'll tell you
Mm.
why. Because you touched upon this in our interview, and I meant to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, Tiffany, when I did open KD Staffing and we were in a recession, I
Mm-hmm.
remember a couple people coming to me and saying, "Kelly, you know what I mean? I know this is a really bad time for a lot of people. What I think you should do is get a second job on the weekend just to help with the stress
Okay.
and the finances." Okay, so I'm the old Kelly Christina. Was years ago, and this would have been 2008, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, are you talking to me? You want me to get a part-time job? I have
Right.
been a boss and an executive. I have la la la. That was me,
Right.
right? And God
Okay.
changes you through
Mm-hmm.
life experiences, whatever you go
Yeah.
through. I believe in it. What doesn't kill you is only going to make you stronger. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, God just develops me every year that I'm alive,
Love that.
right? And I only bring it up because I did lose everything in
Mm.
the book chapters, and I would go homeless, right? And
Mm.
I had had money my entire life. Okay.
Yeah.
25 credit cards, you go in line,
Wow.
you're that embarrassing person that backs up the buggy, like, "I'm sorry, it's going to be 45 minutes," right? You're buying. The point is I had had money my entire life and I lost it.
Yeah.
And for the
Oof.
smart people of the world, you're only going to lose it once. But what I
Mm.
learned through the chapters of that book and being homeless is first, you're
Mm.
forced to walk in somebody else's shoes. And it's not that we don't care.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say I spent a couple years with the government officials on the basic needs of
Yeah.
what the underprivileged need in this country, right? But
Right.
we wouldn't know that unless you actually walked those shoes and that experience. So it's something
Yeah.
that I learned, right? But I also
Wow.
learned in the book, and I would start to rebuild my company, but it would be working 2 to 3 restaurant jobs.
Oof.
And,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the boss jobs. It was, the fine dining, the server, working 2 and 3 jobs that you're underqualified for. But I learned in that book to do what it takes.
Yeah. That's very
Sometimes,
humbling.
it's more stressful sometimes to sit around and worry about where the money come in versus, hey, take 2 and 3 jobs
Yeah.
you're overqualified for and just get to the next level because it's not going
Yeah.
to last forever. So there's a period or there's a degree of pride and
Mm-hmm.
humility that I had to
Yeah.
lose, which develops a brand new personality. I'm one of those now.
Wow.
And since the pandemic, I've coached with a lot of people and guys, we got to get other jobs. It's expensive out there. But I'm the
Yeah.
perfect one to coach jobs and do what
Mm-hmm.
it takes. And
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to a part time job, if you ask Kelly Christina if I need a part time job, Tiffany, I'm taking it
Yeah. Yeah.
now. But
Wow.
that's the older and wiser brand or
Right.
model talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. So you talk about all of these experiences in your books.
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yeah, Riding the Executive Roller Coaster also won 2 International Impact Book Awards,
Amazing.
2021, 2024. We won the trifectas, but here's the deal. I got
Mhm.
picked up as a publisher with Morgan
Oh,
James Publishing out of New York. And
yeah,
we decided if we're going to put a new book, and we are, on the market and make a new edition, well, let's make it better.
yeah. So, again, I know loaded question, but, once you started uncovering this ugly side of the industry, what made you want to be the voice of the right side and the integrity of the industry? That's takes a lot of guts that obviously
Uh,
most people don't have.
They don't, and then the other thing is to be perfectly honest with you, and you would see it in the chapters, there's some very dangerous pieces of that entire story,
I
which means, yes, I
believe it.
risked my life. And you ask,
Mm,
why do you do it? I
yeah.
sometimes, you're just called. You're stuck in a situation.
Okay.
I happen to be the
Mhm.
one that had honest business partners that went corrupt, that they
Mm.
sold me. There's so many people that, somebody has to say no.
Yeah.
And I'm that person, and I will go, I don't know
Well.
why, but it's kinda like, think of it this way, because sometimes I'm like, you just shake your head. You're like, "Why am I this person? Where did this person come from?"
Yeah.
But I remember in my book, somebody saying, and by the way, if you're gonna go up to Washington, DC, and you're gonna advocate or you're gonna fight or whatever you're gonna do, most people know it's not join a protest. There's nothing wrong with joining a
Mm.
protest. But if
Right.
you want to make active, right, and serious business moves with the government officials, then you're gonna set those trips up through the government offices, which is what
Yeah.
I did. You'd be surprised how many people
Okay.
they get that confused, right? That's the
Yeah.
first thing you're doing. But I remember I had been saving my money because I was going to be up in Washington, D.C. for a couple months, right?
Mm.
And I went through Congressman Sam Johnson's office. But the only reason why I bring it up is I can't tell you how many people that came to me and said, Kelli, you have had a beautiful season. You have made so much money. Why
Mm.
in the world would you go up to Washington, D.C. to fight the
Yeah.
Obama administration? Well, they take the money and go on vacation,
Right.
go on a
Right.
cruise, do this, do
Yeah.
that. So, Tiffany, isn't that what the average person would do is go on vacation?
Yeah. You don't seem average to me.
But the thing is that somebody has to take the fight.
Yeah. They do.
So I'll take it.
Well, it's very inspiring,
I didn't mean to
and
get on a soapbox. Sorry.
no, I love it. And I'm on your list for pre-order for your new book, and I'm gonna go back and gotta read the original too. It sounds fascinating. It sounds like roller coaster is probably the right.
Whatever title you give the book, I mean, Riding the Executive Roller Coaster, that
Mm.
that was my designed title at the time, and it really
Mhm.
does explain about being on top, falling all the way to the bottom, and then going back up again. So that's where
Yeah.
the name of that book came from.
Yeah.
I'm not here to tell you that book is off the market. You would have to get the new edition. I could probably write a book now, Tiffany, on authors beware,
Mm.
because all I was doing is out there, by the way, wanting to be an author and sell my books.
Yeah.
And, but the problem with somebody like myself is we're going to start learning another industry. And Tiffany, we got a lot of
Right.
problems out there right now.
Mhm.
So you can go ahead and
Mhm.
throw in publishing, and we're not here to
Mm.
talk about that. But yeah, the new edition book is what you want to shoot for. It's the same story. I just feel like we did better.
And you said that comes out in July?
The pre-orders are available through Barnes and Noble now.
Okay.
You can jump on either one of my author websites, and the books are
Great.
available. After pub date, it'll be available everywhere this summer.
Great.
But a couple things on the book that number one, Tiffany, I'm always going to partner with people that, and you're probably the same way. I partner with like minded business professionals.
Mhm.
I'm very, very grateful to be with through Morgan James, and that's the CEO,
Mm.
David Hancock, and he's taken the time he
Great.
started to take the time with me in 2021. So he spent quite a few years to get to know me. But my book, and in the inside cover, you will see it. But for all the readers that purchased my book, a portion of the proceeds will go towards Habitat for Humanity. That would
Yeah.
only make sense. I have a Making a Difference company that I opened in 2018. So obviously, we're going to try to make a difference.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Love it.
portions will go through Habitat for Humanity. The other thing is that for every print book that you buy, and it's in the inside chapter, you will also get an ebook. So there's a couple, we want to just add some extra value out there for our readers.
Yeah. Love that. So,
Yeah.
when did you start your own? Is it a foundation? You're making the difference?
Right now it's an LLC, and
Okay.
it's great that you would bring up foundation. My first book, it was 2015, 2016. The
Mhm.
15 would have been the year. That year, I sat
Wow.
down and I wrote my first book, and it
Okay.
started with government blogging. And it's
Mhm.
funny, I'm a problem solver, I'm a troubleshooter
Mm.
naturally, and not everybody has it, by the way. But I
Mhm.
naturally see problems in multiple need,
Mm.
fixing, and then
Yeah.
creative solutions. And not everybody is that way. And the reason why I bring it up is,
Yeah.
well, yes, while I was bored, I wrote my first book on, well, how do we run the United States of America? And
Okay.
that year was 15 rolling into 16. And there were
Mhm.
some people that grabbed hold of that and said, you are the smartest lady. You are going to be the first female American president. That's what they thought all those years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So at a later date, I would open KDC Making a Difference LLC in its books and public speaking. And it was for maybe a future election and maybe not. But
Okay.
I'm not there right now.
Right.
It's a lot. There's another couple books that we could write on what's happened, and we're not
Mhm.
there. We're not there,
Got it. Got it.
Okay.
Someday.
Yeah.
Great. So, are you still engaged in public speaking now?
So, I'm engaged with more working right now.
Mhm.
I'm not doing as much public speaking. My original coach was JT Fox. I don't know if you know JT Fox. JT Fox is an international public. He's very
Right.
much known with a lot of the millionaires, billionaires,
Mhm.
celebrities.
Mhm.
Spent a lot of time out in
Yeah.
Los Angeles. I spent a time with JT Fox. I was, public speaking a little bit in California, a little bit in New York, a little bit in Nevada. Not as much right now. My company, KD Staffing, although, we're still open, it's 19 years, the
Mm.
pandemic would come. Bad media would
Yeah.
come. And
Mhm.
so we've suffered company damages. So while
Mm.
I'm out working all the time on company damages, not as much time to public speak.
And
Uh,
how are things going for you now, your staffing business?
it's out of line, Tiffany. It's out of line.
Out of line, in the right place. Yeah.
Something would happen in my career, and this is the best way that I can describe it for you. And then we're going to just try to
Mhm.
keep it nice. But so if you can imagine, I'm
Yeah.
the CEO of KD Staffing, right? And by the way, my
Mhm.
hospitals, they knew that I was, again, the medical industry called me a medical lobbyist. So they knew I was out working with the
Right.
government officials. They're pretty proud of it.
Yeah.
If you can run your staffing company
Yeah.
and work part time with the United States government, you go for it, right? But I
Yeah.
feel like what happened with my own career and with the company damages is somehow my staffing and my making a difference would come crashing together and kind of collide for me
Yeah.
in the years 2020 2021. The
Yeah.
marketing, our services were 4 to 5 star, right? 4 to 5 star.
Mhm.
And we had serviced the largest healthcare system in the United States, CHS. We are up to 4 states servicing hospitals prior to the pandemic.
Wow.
And that's a big,
Mm.
by the way. But also,
Yeah.
what would happen is in the details of the book, you would find out, wait a minute, our hospitals are trying to fire the outside staffing companies and recruitment. And I bring that up
Mm.
because, my own CHS said, we're done with the outside staffing company.
Wow.
I don't care how long. I was with them 11 years. I don't care how long
Yeah.
you worked for us. We're firing you. We're going to add more HR. So
Yeah.
there are layers of the problems with KD staffing.
Following your lead is something that others will do because, people do want to make a difference and they do want to do the right thing, but they need somebody to take the lead and they need
Well,
somebody
and
to pave the way. And I think that you've done an amazing job
I
and
think
have been
that
fearless
I
throughout
think,
it.
I think that we've, lost somewhat of making a difference message has been lost in
Mm.
just all the problems, you don't hear about it as much, which is why I have
Right.
been bringing it up a lot because it truly is. People have lost the whole concept of, making a difference. That is
Mhm.
not about the bigger names. That's about everybody in the country can
Right.
make a difference.
Yeah.
And to me,
Yeah.
I've been trained on, you know what, if you can't give money, then you can give service.
Yeah.
Service is free too. But people have forgotten that if our country's going to be big and it's going to be better and we're going to grow, we're going to get stronger, we have to have more people involved. And by the
Mhm.
way, ignoring problems, it's not going to work. It just snowballs and it gets
Sure
worse and it
doesn't.
gets worse. And our
Yeah.
country is very guilty of burying problems. I'll bury
Yeah.
it and then it goes away and it doesn't. It just comes
Well, it's
right back
human
up.
nature.
Yeah.
It just does feel like it's easier to move forward and leave it than to face it when we know that's not the case at all.
Well, and then it does go back to, I was literally sitting in Washington, D.C. about staffing and recruitment and what's going down, what's going to kill our industry. And
Mm,
look at what's happening all these years later. People are calling up the
yeah.
reports. Can you believe it? This is going on. And I'm all like,
Yeah.
yeah, really. Well, again,
Yeah.
this was how many years ago was I sitting? 12 years ago. I mean, you know what? Why were we not taking it more serious then? But now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, oh my gosh. So
Right.
this world is a wow sometimes. So if you take me out and you take out my business, you take out my team, my livelihood, and I am not going
Right.
to do that just to make a difference. I need to pay my bills. So
Yeah.
you did that. And I took my son. And the other thing is I'm single. Like it would never work, right? I just
Right.
happen to be the only one that can write a book. I happen to be somebody that in my bored time could write a book on how we could make this country
Mm.
better. But here's the deal with that. See, I'm the smart lady. I listen to a lot of
Mhm.
people, and it's not just me. It's me and
Yeah.
everybody else. What do you want?
Yeah.
That's how you
Yeah.
find out what the country wants.
Yeah.
You listen to other people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I'm a new business owner. I'm a new founder,
I love that.
starting something brand new. I've never, I was in staffing. Now I'm building a tech company. What advice would you give me now that I'm in my first kind of 6 to 8 months of building my business to, really make a success out of my first year and others like me?
I would say, do you have any networking events or are you
Mm,
networking with other people in this industry? Because I've spent years and years with networking groups just because I feel like we feed upon each other's knowledge. We're
yeah.
able to share knowledge because a lot of
Hmm.
times the competition is not, that's one thing. Once you go into business for yourself, you can forget that, competition's not going to help you out. They're not.
Yeah. Very true.
But I would say network.
Okay.
For like-minded in that industry and educate yourself all the time.
Mm, mm-hmm.
I have been saying this in my own book, with every book there's a new legacy. And
Mm.
my big legacy, even promoting or my message this year is avoid legal disaster.
Ooh,
Spend a little
good
bit of
one.
time on legal and find out what you can and can't do up front. And the reason why I bring that
Yeah.
up is I can't tell you how many times somebody tries, like on their own company fee agreement or service agreement
Mm.
or whatever you're agreeing to in business.
Right.
You don't use the appropriate attorneys or you think you're going to shortline the contract. I say don't do that.
Smart.
That's your paycheck. So you
Yeah.
want to spend a little bit of money to make sure that attorney, because, I've seen some really bad, company agreements out there where you can't even tell who gets what. And you
Right.
want an attorney. So
Smart.
that's a big one. Educate
Love it.
yourself. Make sure whatever type of service or fee agreement that you do get with somebody that's legally smart or an
Mm.
attorney. But the other
That's
thing
great.
is just pace yourself,
Mm.
because results don't always happen overnight.
Mm.
They don't.
Does. And I haven't had advice on the legal side yet. That was great. But that's very, very smart. I should be working that into my strategy. So thank you very much.
You're very,
And speaking of legacy, what would you say you want to be remembered for?
I truly, am probably noted right now, but I truly am somebody that, Tiffany, it's never going to be just about Kelli Christina. It's about
Mm.
me and everybody else in this world
Yeah.
and, how much you can help
Mhm.
and how much you can make a difference, you know?
Yeah, that's great. So, Kelly, let's talk about a couple of fun things before we wrap up.
Fun?
We've been very business focused and very serious. So, what does Kelly Christina do for fun?
So I don't know if I have the most exciting life right now. Okay, I've had better years. Okay, Tiffany.
Mm,
I am just at that point where you're rising up out of a ditch and you're brushing your knees off, right? But
right.
what you will detect and what, oh boy, I can even get on people's nerves at job and everything. I have a very positive spirit. I have a very positive attitude, but
Yeah.
I've had a life program for 18 years that taught me positive
Yeah.
thinking. And that doesn't mean life is going all right all at the same time. It just means that you can shelve
Yeah.
your problems a little bit, or every day you can wake up and be grateful for something, even if it's the basics.
Right.
So I have a very positive attitude, and it doesn't matter where I work or where I step into, that energy just comes with it. Right.
Mm,
But I'm
love that.
also, you're talking about fun and balance of life. Yes, I'm always going to pull over to meet up with my friends, my loved ones, my family. I'm always going to pull over for fun time. I'm a big believer. I think it makes
Great.
you
Good.
a stronger person when you have that fun
Yeah,
side. You know, you can't
it
just be married
does.
to the job all the
No.
time. You know,
Yeah.
I am an overworker. I'm probably a
Mm,
workaholic, but I will pull myself over and say, that's enough, Kelly. Take some time. As a matter of fact, this year
good.
I'm
Good
taking a
for
little bit
you.
more time. I'm also very big on exercise, very big on exercise.
Okay.
And I only bring that up because, it keeps you young. You know, I'm not
It
even
sure
allowed with my
does.
own parents to say that I'm getting older. And I'm like, Mom and Dad, I am getting older and my body is, but they're all like, they're still riding bikes and hiking and doing yard work. And my dad at 80 thinks he's going to get on top of a roof. And it's just like, wow. I come from very young family genes. And
Yeah.
so I believe in it, you know.
Love it. One last question, and I think that this is a big one. I know I've done some mentoring. I know you have as well. And I think, people are not always able to stand up and brush themselves off like you have. It doesn't come very naturally to many people. What advice would you give to somebody who's been through something they feel is tragic in their life, and it's time to get up and stop feeling sorry for yourself? Easier said than done. How do you do that?
Well, I've had a life of God trained me. Okay. And that is what a lot of people, they're all like, yeah,
Interesting.
you have had. Like, this is what I say, Tiffany. A lot of people say, I am the author that can produce multiple, life story, greatest inspiration books, all
Mm,
right? Juicy stories, bestsellers, right? But see,
yeah.
then you got to look at the opposite side. But you have to realize that when you tell these stories, you actually have to survive this stuff first. You actually have to
Yeah.
survive to tell the
Right.
story. So when you're coaching people on survival, which I've done a lot in a lifetime myself, first thing is that you do have to go one day at a time, 1 week at a time, and not expect too much. I remind people and I believe in it. I think you're only going to smash down so far.
Mm,
God is only going to smash
yeah.
you down so far before you start to rise
Yeah.
again. You just have to
Okay.
get to the point where you've been smashed out and you rise again. Okay?
Mm,
Here's one thing. People, their personality, sometimes they don't want to forgive themselves, right? And you have
mhm.
to be able to forgive the past.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, you've given some great advice. I appreciate so much you sharing so much of this story. The time has flown by. I
I know
cannot
it has, hasn't
believe
it? Yeah.
we've been talking for so long. So, I think we're gonna have to schedule part two. I feel like I'm saying that with everybody because we can just keep going and going. But just to wrap us up, tell everybody where we can find you, your book, your speaking, your website, your tell us where we can find you and continue to learn and follow your journey.
So I have two author websites, Kelli Christina author.com, or you can go and it almost needs to be, written out but it is right there. You'll see the kellydennehychristina.com,
Okay,
and that is my second author website. But Kelly
great,
Dennehy Christina or Kelli Christina, if you pull me up on the internet, I'm all over the place. Okay.
great,
And
perfect.
also have an amazing Kelly Dennehy Christina YouTube channel that's the home to, over 1 million views. A lot of
Great.
beautiful materials out. So
Great.
anyway, but does that answer your question?
It does. And we'll drop some of those links, as many as we can, on our YouTube page and anywhere we're posting. So, well, Kelly Christina, I want to thank you so much. This has been such a phenomenal experience getting to know you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for your invite, and I'm just wishing you a beautiful and
Yeah,
blessed year. I just have a feeling you're going to rock it out.
great. Thanks.
Thank you.